A Ferrari in Formula One that is unfortunately causing difficulties for Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. This is the impression we got from the first 3 races of the 2025 Formula One Championship. What was expected so far has not been seen. We are referring to the competitiveness of the SF25 single-seater, as part of this expected performance has remained on paper. Disappointment and frustration mix with the desire to change pace, to show that the 676 project is not what has been seen so far in the first 3 rounds of the season. The Ferrari engineers and technicians are ready with updates for the Bahrain Grand Prix weekend, which have been tested by Ferrari reserve driver Antonio Giovinazzi in the simulator after team principal Frederic Vasseur had pulled the handbrake on introducing the updated floor last weekend at the 5.807-kilometer Suzuka circuit. The Frenchman's statements had scared Ferrari fans quite a bit. Frederic Vasseur seemed determined to delay the first aerodynamic update package in order to better understand the SF25 car before deciding on new solutions. A phrase that left several unsettling scenarios open. Was there a risk that the updates would not be valid anymore, or that they would not work with the current technical base? It is hard to be certain, but in Bahrain, unless there are last-minute denials, the SF25 will still present some important updates. First and foremost, a revised floor in several areas, a key element for generating aerodynamic downforce correctly. So far, the car has shown too much instability during certain phases of driving. This intervention should fix things. The new aerodynamic package has been tested by Antonio Giovinazzi in the simulator, who returned to Maranello after the Japanese Grand Prix to work on it. An important contribution, directly requested by Frederic Vasseur, in order to validate the virtual updates intended for the Sakir weekend. Now, however, it needs the judgment of the track, the only one that truly matters. During the first 2 free practice sessions, there could be a direct comparison between the updated floor version and the base version, useful for cross-referencing the collected data and understanding things better. At this point, it is worth highlighting Charles Leclerc's insight into driving style. While waiting to resolve the technical issues, Charles Leclerc has worked on a specific driving technique to manage the lack of rotation. The results were visible in Japan, where the Monegasque driver was more incisive than his Maranello teammate. Charles Leclerc has mostly tamed understeer through a refined method, developed together with his performance engineer, useful for correcting the behavior of the SF25. In the latest weekend at the Suzuka circuit, both Ferrari drivers made interesting statements. Lewis Hamilton was more talkative, admitting several issues that worry the team, such as ride heights. Even today, the Italian team still has doubts about how to effectively utilize the ground clearance starting from the next races. The British driver then spoke about the setup chosen in Japan, which was different from Charles Leclerc's. It is correct for drivers to explore different solutions. Their intuition will be crucial to rediscover the ideal balance of the SF25 and close the gap of those 0.2 of pure performance still missing. However, the path Lewis Hamilton took did not pay off. The 7-time Formula One world champion suffered from understeer a lot more than his teammate, a lack of rotation that often turned into oversteer during exit phases. Lewis Hamilton himself admitted that Charles Leclerc had opted for a different approach, which was later confirmed in practice. Along with his track engineers and vehicle specialists, the Monegasque driver was able to better manage understeer. This also led to more stable tire temperature management, a clear indication of the technical direction to take in the upcoming Grand Prix. A lot of attention has been paid to the British driver at Ferrari so far, naturally, given that he is newly arrived at the team. The Italian side has been focused on getting Lewis Hamilton to acclimate and bed in with his SF25, a task which he feels is underestimated by the wider watching public. In several interviews during the Japanese Grand Prix weekend, the former Mercedes driver mentioned that outside of the garage, most people completely underestimate what they actually do. He explained that when discussing setup and the changes they make, they are working with various factors such as aero through corner balance, mechanical balance, and floor balance, and are constantly trying to fine-tune and adjust all these elements throughout the race weekend. In essence, based on various studies conducted on telemetry and by adjusting the setup, Charles Leclerc has understood how to unlock some of the unexpressed potential of the SF25 single-seater. The feeling is very positive, but obviously, time is short. That is why a lot of simulator work will be required, especially in the coming weeks, particularly after the introduction of updates that will change the SF25 car's behavior. According to information gathered and reported by various Italian news media outlets during this week, the 7-time Formula One world champion is working extensively on the braking phase, a crucial area involving the use of the brake and the pressure profile to apply when entering the corner. Modern Formula One cars are extremely sensitive in this phase, and the driver's feeling is decisive. Lando Norris is also working on this with McLaren, but with different objectives given the different nature of the MCL39 single-seater. From a technical standpoint, we can explain what happens, thanks to the help of an F1 reserve driver. Considering the SF25's lack of rotation at the center of the corner, Charles Leclerc slightly extends the braking phase. By doing so, when the wheels start to unload, the braking force becomes slightly greater than the theoretical optimal value. This small surplus helps the car rotate, reducing understeer. In practice, the Monegasque driver delays the so-called dead brake point just a little, which is the moment when the pressure on the pedal reaches 0%. To clarify, let's imagine the opposite case. If the driver were to anticipate the complete release of the brake, the car would slide faster toward the apex of the corner, but it would automatically become more understeering. A similar technique, but in reverse, can be applied in the case of an oversteering car. This is done by anticipating the release, which can neutralize the onset of excessive rotation. The braking system of an F1 car, however, is extremely sophisticated and offers various parameters to work with. At Ferrari, they are working precisely on this front, a lot of simulator and track work to optimize brake balance throughout the entire corner entry, from early entry to late entry. Lewis Hamilton, meanwhile, is also looking for improvements in his Ferrari package, stating after the race at Suzuka that there is a specific issue that needs to be addressed. The Briton told Sky Sports F1 that he was generally lacking performance compared to the cars ahead of him, particularly Mercedes, McLaren, and Red Bull. He added that they had identified an issue with the car that had been underperforming for the past 3 races, and he was hopeful that once it is fixed, he would start seeing better results. This weekend in Bahrain, Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton are prepared to take a step towards solving Ferrari's problems, which amount to just 35 points across 3 rounds of the 2025 Formula One Championship. Using Bahrain as a testbed for a new setup direction is a sound idea by Charles Leclerc, given there's recent data from pre-season testing to compare with. Ferrari team boss Frederic Vasseur himself said as much in his pre-race notes, noting that with the 4th race of the season taking place in Bahrain, it would be an opportunity to assess how much progress had been made with the SF25 in terms of unlocking its potential since the pre-season test held there at the end of February.